At the end of episode 1, Vincenzo was hanging a whole human being out of a window of a building with a measuring tape. Mr. Park promises that his man will leave if Vincenzo helps him up. However, when Vincenzo complies, he orders his goons to kill Vincenzo. Typical. Luckily, the police and reporters show up just in time to chase away the troublemakers. Despite the help, Hong Yoo-chan remains suspicious of Vincenzo and his motives. He pulls Vincenzo aside and wants to know what he's conspiring and if he's in cahoots with the Babel Group to screw over the residents, which annoys Vincenzo since he is innocent. Of this accusation at least, we know he's not 100% innocent. Hong Cha-yeon, for some reason, is still hanging around and is on the sidelines making comments to egg them on. After the argument ends, Vincenzo promises again that he will get the plaza back whether they believe him or not. Cha-yeon has a hunch and tells Vincenzo that she believes there's something more valuable to him within the building. It seems she's quite sharp, this lady. Vincenzo goes to visit Mr. Cho at the hospital. He's severely injured after being hit by a truck. I'm just glad he's not dead because I thought that's where it was headed. They talk about how the secret room at the plaza has measures inside that if someone tries to break in, it has defense mechanisms to stop them by collapsing in on itself. Aside from him, Mr. Cho, and the Chinese mobster who commissioned them, no one knows how to access the room because they killed off all the contractors that worked on the construction of the secret room. What's more, since the Chinese mobster died from a swimming accident a year ago, the gold is technically up for grabs between Vincenzo and Mr. Cho. But both Babel and the tenants are making their mission complicated, so first thing first, he needs to find a way of removing the monks from the temple to retrieve the gold. He visits the temple and convinces them not to waste money on a boiler as the building will be demolished anyway. Instead, like a good Samaritan that he is, he will personally put in heating pads for them. Vincenzo also meets Hong Yoo-chan and asks if he can have the documents for Babel ENC so that he can research the enemy before defeating them. Hong Yoo-chan is hesitant, but sees no better alternative to forming an alliance with him despite their moral differences. I don't think Vincenzo has ever given him the reason to think that he's money-oriented, did he? Anyway, as Vincenzo scans through the mountains of court documents in front of him, Hong Yoo-chan comes to the realization that having Vincenzo beside him could perhaps be an advantage. In another scene, Cha-yeon tries to network with Chairman Jun of Babel as she's in charge of the lawsuit for them. He tells her to cut to the chase because he's busy and coldly walks away. Cha-yeon's little sidekick, who seems to have a big crush on her, makes a fuss about how arrogant the chairman is, but she just brushes it off as he's rich and powerful and therefore can do whatever he wants. Cha-yeon waltzes into her father's office again to spy on what they're up to. She tells them that she's looking for her wallet since she knows she's clearly not welcome there. Vincenzo tells Cha-yeon and Hong Yoo-chan that the Babel Group is dirty and corrupt and they do everything the Mafia do, maybe even more, and therefore he's going to make them pay for acting out of line. Cha-yeon gets frustrated as Hong Yoo-chan offers to help Vincenzo as much as possible to put them to justice. Cha-yeon follows Vincenzo around and forces him to eat a meal with her while calling him basic because he orders like a tourist. Vincenzo tells her that he's not manipulating her father to get what he wants, he's only preparing for war against a corrupt titan. In response, Cha-yeon tells Vincenzo to go back to Italy and fight against what he's used to because Korea is the big leagues, where politicians, police, prosecutors, corporations all get their hands dirty. The witty bantering between these two can only mean one thing: a K-drama romance is brewing. In a change of scene, we're introduced to a couple of new characters. Prosecutor Choi Myung-hee, known for her ruthlessness and doing whatever it takes to get what she wants, decides to hand in her resignation at the prosecutor's office as she's sick of being used by the higher-ups and tossed aside. She's being recruited by the CEO of Woosun Law Firm, the same law firm that Cha-yeon works for, as a senior counsel. CEO Han Song-hyuk tells her that Babel Group has Woosun Law on retainer, and even though that's going to make them all super rich, he wants her help to deal with the crazy, psychotic chairman. Miss Choi is deeply intrigued by this. Why? Because psychos love to meet other psychos. Speaking of the Babel chairman, we come to a scene where the aloof, handsome, supposedly psychotic Chairman Jung is getting bashed in with a freaking hockey stick by a mysterious man in a hockey uniform for not sealing the deal on the construction work at Gunga Plaza. What the heck? More to uncover there, definitely. Vincenzo heads to Babel offices with Hong Yoo-chan and asks if he can see the head of investment and development, Mr. Na. Reception is like, nah, since he didn't make an appointment, until he shows a bill of indictment for threatening and abetting. When they are let in to see the guy, Vincenzo tells him that the bill is fake and they just wanted to quote-unquote talk. Vincenzo asks Mr. Na to cancel the contract that they forced Mr. Cho to sign and grabs him strongly by the shoulder to threaten him that if he brings others' wives and kids into his negotiations, then his own wife and kids are fair game. Vincenzo shows his gangster side here and Hong Yoo-chun looks impressed. The two lawyers go out for a drink and a meal. The pair finds a lot more in common than they first thought and start their bonding. Vincenzo nonchalantly asks Hong Yoo-chun if he's also a pro bono lawyer on the side, which gets him to open up about his client who was falsely charged for murder. She's in the terminal stage of pancreatic cancer, but she accepts all the suffering because she believes she's being punished for abandoning her son. When asked why his law firm is named Straw, to be fair, I think it sounds more legit in Korean. In English, it's just straw. He talks about how he is the last lawyer the clients can lean on, the last straw. While talking to Vincenzo, Hong Yoo-chun gets a call from an unknown number and leaves to answer it. The caller is silent for a while and then hangs up. Have some of you guessed who this man is? On the other side, Ulsan Law Firm welcomes Miss Choi to the team and announces that she will be the lead counsel for Babel. This clearly pisses Taec-yeon off since she's used to being the top dog. Miss Choi's first order of business was Gunga Plaza and how to get rid of the tenants. They're leaning towards using their go-to method of accidentally knocking part of the structure down while demolishing a neighboring building in order to scare the tenants into leaving. Cha-young asks if they should consider the impact of their actions and find better alternatives since a few people died in the last demolition because of their reckless, shady method. And then we see how Cha-young slowly changes sides. Cha-young learns that the time they will demolish the plaza is 11 p.m. tomorrow after her trusty sidekick overhears Mr. Han on the phone with Chairman Jun. She rushes to Hong Yoo-chun's place to prevent him from harm, but before she could say anything, he rushes out after getting a call. Cha-young is frustrated by her father's lack of care and tells Vincenzo that they must evacuate the tenants immediately as the demolition team is coming tomorrow. Vincenzo warns the tenants about the demolition plans and they stir up a frenzy while he remains calm, casually scrolling through and liking photos on his Instagram. I took him to be more of a TikTok guy, honestly. Mr. Han and Miss Choi learned that one of the researchers at Babel Pharmaceuticals has run away during the quarantine, a fact that Cha-young already found out but was keeping from them until she could find the researcher. They ended their meal short to go deal with the matter because if the researcher decides to whistleblow on the wrongdoings inside Babel, they would be done. But what they feared obviously already happened, since those mysterious calls that Hong Yoo-chun has been getting were ding 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 from the researcher who has escaped. Mr. Han rings Cha-young, but she's too busy heading to the plaza to get her father out of there before the demolition. When she arrives, a bustling, traditional Sicilian VIP wine party is happening right outside the plaza, with foreign dignitaries and news coverage, meaning that the construction team cannot proceed. The tenants enjoy the party late into the night, and in the background, Vincenzo sips his red wine and takes in the atmosphere. Flashbacks show Vincenzo scheming and coming up with the idea of a grand party and promoting it through his connections on Instagram. Hong Cha-young, in awe of his resourcefulness and creativity, looks up at him from a distance, and suddenly the world slows down between them. Vincenzo raises a glass to toast her, signaling the beginning of their budding friendship or romance. Still a very solid storyline, don't you guys think? This early in the show, we're obviously introduced to a lot of characters. In a recap, it's hard to do all their personalities justice, so be sure to watch the full-length show if you want to really get a flavor of the character building. This show definitely plays on the duality of a person's character. Is Vincenzo a ruthless mafia or a defender of justice? Is Cha-young greedy and corrupt or a realist who's actually a caring daughter? The prosecutor turned Babel watchdog is a character to keep an eye on because Miss Choi is supposed to uphold the law as a prosecutor but clearly has a reputation for being cold-blooded and is currently stepping into the role of the main antagonist, it seems. The chairman of Babel is a bit of an enigma too, seems arrogant and powerful as head of a giant enterprise, but then it seems that there is likely a puppet master behind the scenes pulling his strings and he's clearly being physically and psychologically abused. I for one cannot wait to keep watching. Who's your favorite character so far? Please comment and subscribe. Bye everybody!